Hey everyone, I'm guessing you could see I'm maybe not so far away from what I have in front of me, but as you can see, this is everything SatAM related that I have right in front of you. Everything SatAM media related. Because it's hard to believe, if you will, that it's been 20 years since the series debuted on ABC in 1993. I want to make sure I get the date right too. But it's kind of hard to believe. But maybe not really. It's been 20 years. What's ironic about this is that 10 years ago, if you will, 10 years ago, Sonic X made its debut. And it made its debut in the 10th anniversary year of this show, SatAM. So, kind of ironic that you have what is widely considered as the two most popular Sonic cartoons, if you will, debuting 10 years apart. Basically, Sonic X, and I've noted this before, and I'm sure anybody else would agree, Sonic X, for the new generation of fans, became their SatAM, or the SatAM that I knew of from that I, along with people like MJ Knight, Laura Blue, the team at Season, the SatAM we grew up on, like Jonathan 83X, Ezekiel 2000, is right here, is celebrating its 20th anniversary. Well, like I said, this year Sonic X celebrates its 10th anniversary. But, a lot of people like to look back at the past 20 years because the past 20 years, this show has not really lost its fan base. Let's be honest. It's not really lost the fan base. If anything, the fan base has grown. Even the new generation of Sonic fans that have heard about it, when they finally saw it, they actually got a kick out of it as well. They got a kick out of it as well because it was so good. Now, of course, it's gotten its criticism. Some people have said it. Some have felt that it's overrated, and some have felt that it's overrated and stuff. And again, a lot of people have felt that it was overrated, and there have been people that have felt that way. But believe it or not, the majority that have felt that it's been overrated, some that have even felt it wasn't that good of a show, they basically get outnumbered by the majority of fans that actually enjoyed it. And we're not just talking Sonic fans. We're talking animation fans. And here's why. Because basically Dig Entertainment, now Cookie Jar Entertainment, took a relatively storyless game. I mean, it had a story, but not much of a story. And gave it more story, gave it more of a background, gave it more of a history as to why the things were happening. Happening the way they were. Yeah. Tomorrow's the 20th anniversary. Hard to believe. Tomorrow's the 20th anniversary. Hard to believe. But like I said, this fan base from 20 years ago being tomorrow, the fan base for the show never really died out. They grew up, yeah, like I did. I'm 34 years old. I'm still a fan. There's another person, Sean McLean, Zero Nizarak of the Multimedia Chronicles. He's older than me, obviously, of course, but he's about probably the age of my oldest sister, about 4 years older, maybe 5 years older than me. And yet, he enjoyed this show when it came out. out in 1993 as well. And his daughter is enjoying it. Ben-Hur, God rest his soul, when he did an interview for the DVD, he said that they were only a few episodes in, and they got a 5-page letter from a 50-year-old person, probably now in the 70s, saying how they were an advocate for freedom in the United States. Basically, not praising, but basically acknowledging that the story, that the storyline for the first season, even a few episodes in, had a message to it, a message of hope and freedom. And that to me, to hear that was really awesome. To hear that was just tremendously, really awesome. But I remember 20 years ago this day, or actually it'll be this night, I remember 20 years ago, me and my family were in Kansas, and me and my sisters and my mom were a few weeks away from driving back with my dad, or basically a few weeks away from me, from my dad. Basically, me and my family were a couple weeks away from moving back to California, due to the fact that Kansas just wasn't really doing it for them, and the house situation we were in wasn't the best housing situation you could think of. So we ended up, a few weeks after the show debuted, well, actually a month later, I should say, after the show debuted, we ended up moving back to Kansas. Back to California, I should say. We ended up moving back to California about a month later or so. But I remember 20 years ago tonight, they had, back in the day, and a lot of people obviously miss this, I do, they still had their Saturday morning preview specials. And the preview special for 1993 was being hosted by the cast, in character, the cast of Family Matters. And why? Because their number one star out of that show, the one person that really took off, their character took off, the one person whose character really took off, Jaleel White as Steve Urkel. Jaleel White was given the job, was basically presented with the job of being the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. That's right. That's right. Jaleel White was asked to do the voice of Sonic, and he accepted. And he has begun on, even to this day, many fans will, when they hear his voice, a majority of longtime fans and even some newer fans will say that he is, among all the previous and more recent voices of Sonic, the definitive voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. Of this very character. And again, that was 20 years ago. Basically, you got to give Dick Entertainment credit. They took the hottest young actor on network television at that time, and they had him voice the hottest video game character at that time, in not just one but two shows, and then later on a third show. So that was pretty cool. That was really cool, at least. And I remember watching Saturday morning preview, and Sonic was one of the first shows they previewed for about 5, 6, 7 minutes or something like that. And it was the episode that they were going to air the following day, which was Supersonic. And I thought that was really cool. And, and here's the thing, and this is what always gets a lot of people. Even Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, he even said this, folks. He said, if you look at his review, and he admits it in commentary, that basically, when you compare Adventures with SatAM, it's almost like night and day. It's like one is like completely off the wall, meant for younger viewers and all that, totally slapstick, more related to the games than anything. Well, this one takes a relatively, like I said at the beginning, storyless story. Basically a relatively, almost storyless game franchise, It did have a story, but not that much. It expanded it into even more than what people were used to seeing in the games. Expanded it even more. And that was that was something that, really, you take a look at the track record of animated shows at that time, based on video games or any kind of franchise, and the show always tried to stay close to what the video game was. I remember about 4 years before, in 1989, when when Dick Entertainment did the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, aka on Fridays Legend of Zelda show, that most of the time the Mario Brothers, and I think even Zelda, stayed true to what the games were about. You had the video game sounds added into as special effects. You had all of it. So they're relatively. So you see, the story that they had was basically in the games, basically just carried over to the cartoon. Hold on a second, I'll let that pass. That's a recycling truck. But relatively, the minimal stories that they had in the games just got carried over into the cartoons and the numerous spin-offs like Super Mario 3 cartoon and Super Mario World and All-Star cartoons, as well as Zelda. His thing got carried on as well. The one thing, though, about Zelda that I think a lot of people can relate to when they look at SatAM is they try to expand more with the characters and with the story than what you had seen in the games. Because obviously Zelda had more to offer than Mario. If you don't believe me, take a look at all the Zelda games that have come out. There's your answer. There's your answer. All the Zelda games that came out, there's your answer. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, it's more along the lines of, just like Zelda, Sonic, game-wise, had a minimal story to work with, and just like with Zelda, the creative team at Dick Entertainment expanded it into more than what it is. They didn't expand. I will say this: Zelda was not expanded in the way that Sonic was. Sonic was expanded even more so than anything. And they took some concepts that you saw in the games, and they took it up a notch. They took it to a whole new level. Okay, one of the concepts in the games, the capturing of animals and putting them inside robots known as badniks. The creative staff at SatAM took it to another level. They said, basically they decided, instead of having animals captured or having basically Mobians captured and placed into these robots, they decided to take it to another level and say, let's just have Robotnik have a machine where when the animal is placed inside, or the Mobian is placed inside, they get turned into a robot. They're not placed inside a robot, they become the robot. And to me, when you think about it, when you look back on it, that was such an ingenious idea. That was such a great concept to take relatively, to take something like capturing characters, and placing them, like taking, like basically taking the characters, or taking characters or animals or mobies, whatever, and imprisoning them inside of a robot, basically placing them inside, like forcing them inside to a robot to be like the battery or whatever. Instead, they took that concept, where Sonic would, when he would hit a robot in the games, an animal would come out. They took that concept to another level, to where the character was the robot. So, and they dubbed it robotization, and that was really cool in its own right. It was really cool in its own right that they did that. But what was even better was the following season, which had more of a continuity than the first season. I'll get to that in a little bit. they gave a backstory on how the roboticizer machine came about. And it was a surprising backstory. It was a surprising revelation. Now, as far as the show goes, the show, like I said, even Doug Walker has mentioned it. You know, it's like night and day. I mean, basically, Adventures, being the slapstick Texas Avery kind of style that it was, intended for the younger audiences and being more closely related to the games. This was the complete polar opposite. The only closest it ever got to that situation, to being like Adventures, was with the pilot. The pilot was the pilot, dubbed or named Heads or Tails, featured the cast in the early forms, in the early designs. Like, you know, Sally here was all pink and had like a brownish, red-brownish hair like this. It's like a strand of hair just right there. It's kind of like a little ponytail, strand of hair, if you will. You kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about if you've seen Heads or Tails. You know, Rhoda, he was purple, you know, like he's been in the comics since the beginning. Antoine had a bit of a different design, a bit of a comic book design, which they adapted. Bunny had her white cheeks kind of deal, which white fur cheeks, which she still has to this day. Well, I guess you could say white cheeks or whatever, a white mound on her fur, like she does today. But she had purple, instead of having like grayish silver cybernetics, she had purple and white. So that was kind of cool. And then the swap bots, of course, were the white and gray swap bots, and not the ones that we got later on. And of course, another thing about the pilot was you had some badniks in there, like the Motobugs and the Buzz Bombers, and another thing was it had a more comedic style, more of an adventure, so Sonic the Hedgehog-like style, which I think what they wanted to aim for with this. I mean, here's the backstory. And a lot of people debate this, but here's the backstory. From what I have heard, from what I've understood, originally, from what I understood, from what I've been told, from what I've read, Adventures was originally intended to be the ABC show. Well, SatAM was originally intended to be the weekday show. That's what I understand. I could be wrong, but that's what I've heard for years. Something along those lines. But because of the fact but the reason it was changed was Adventures had more episodes and were more suited for syndication on weekday syndication than Saturday mornings. You want a good example of that? I'll give you one. Recently, in the past few years, This Is for Kids, the weekend morning block of it, has had Sonic, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic Underground, as its 1 hour Sonic block. Yeah, they've had a 65 episode and 40 episode shows as the block. Go figure. But anyway, that was the pilot episode. Then after that, we got, in my area, we got Supersonic. But here's the thing though. Yeah, I saw the pilot, but I didn't see the pilot until the end of the first season. It was the last episode aired on the first season. I'm not lying to any of you. It was the last episode aired. You know, when I first saw it, I thought, ooh, they're doing a comic book special, or comic book related episode on Sonic, on the cartoon, because the characters were in the comic book designs at that time. Only then, later on, did I realize it was intended to be the pilot. It was intended to originally be aired first. Because instead, what we got on September 18th, 20 years ago, was Supersonic. Yeah, we got Supersonic. And I've tested to this day, and I'm going to say it again. I've tested to this day, I've attested to this, and I remain it to be true as a fan. When I saw Supersonic for the first time, I'm going to give the writers all the credit in the world. They made me truly believe that they were going to have a season where Sonic would have to go and try to rescue Sally and Bunny because they were being put under mind control by Robotnik. Because Robotnik had gained control of this magical crystal which can mind control of, people, brainwash people, or mind control them into his servants. So that was pretty cool. I mean, it made it believable, even though you knew it wasn't going to happen. But when you're watching the episode for the first time, you're watching the series for the first time, then it makes you want to think that's what's going to happen. But it doesn't, which is kind of cool. It does establish that, the first season does establish that it has some comedic moments in the show. Like after Bunny brings, trying to think what it is. She brings something. I can't think what she brings to Rotor. Oh, she brings a tool chest is what she does. She brings a tool chest. She's got like a tool belt as well. So she opens up the pocket on the tool belt, and you can see this already, but she sees it for the first time, and you can tell this is where they get some of the comedic moments. Her hair just stands on end like, holy smokes, what the heck happened to me? You could tell they had the comedic moments. You could tell they were establishing, they were a more darker, more serious cartoon, but they also had the comedic moments as well. So that was kind of cool. I know I sound like a broken record there, I apologize, but that was cool. Let's face it. It was kind of unique to see that. And you could see Sally had it too. It's like, when it's like in the first episode, you can tell they're establishing what elements you can find in the show. Like you're going to get your serious and your dark elements, but you're also going to get your comedic elements. Like when Sally goes into a factory on a mission with Sonic to get some repair components, some components to repair her portable computer Nicole. She bumps into a bot and she's like, "Oh hi, I was just leaving," and the alarm goes off and her hair stands on end like, "Oh crap," She's like, "Oh, I hate when they do that kind of deal." So, but again, really intriguing to see those comedic elements. They weren't as much as what you saw in Adventures, but they were there. They were really there. The show was the first season of the show. Let's take a look at the first season. The first season basically was more of an introductory season. That's what it was. It was more of an introductory season a season to establish and introduce you to what the plot was about, who the characters were, and basically what the mission was. And I like that. It was really cool. Every episode was its own self-contained episode. That's what it was. Every episode was its own self-contained episode, and it basically established who the characters were, what their mission was, and it had a very subtle environmental message in it. So that was really cool. If you will. So basically, this was more of an establishing season, introductory season. It let you get to know who Sally was. It let you get to know who Antoine was, who Rhoda was, who Bunny was, who Tails was more so. I mean, here's the thing. They gave Sonic and Tails more of a background than the games ever did. Yeah, they gave them more of a background than the games ever did. I mean, we got to meet Sonic's Uncle Chuck. We got to hear that Tails has a family, and he misses his mom. It's like what other video game adaptations that you can think of that Dig Entertainment had done in the past, or any other studio had done in the past, would do that? Would expand on who the characters were and give them more background. What other studios? No one, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, the episode was self-contained. The final two episodes, as far as I remember, were trying to think. The final two episodes that I remember were Sonic and the Secret Scrolls, which I think was the final episode to the season. I could be wrong. But, well, not really the final episode. Let me kind of take a look here. No, Sonic Past Cool was the last episode according to the disc on season 1. But anyway, the way ABC aired them, you know, they kind of aired them in a sense that I guess made more sense leading into the new season. But Sonic and the Secret Scrolls was like the second to last episode I saw. And then Heads or Tails, the pilot episode, was the last episode before we went into the second season. So that was kind of unique to see the pilot episode as the last episode. I will say that. But it came on. I watched it. The first time I watched it, I was still living with my grandparents here in California, along with my mom and my sisters. The second time I saw it was essentially, I think, about a week or two before the second season began. And that's when I was in Kansas. So I saw it twice in 1 year, and in 2 states. I saw it and that was my dryer going off in the background. I apologize for that. But I saw it 2 times in 1 year. In California, when it first aired, and California when it first, well, I actually saw it twice here, I think. I can't remember. No, I actually saw it once because, because they always would. The one thing about Sonic SatAM, just like any show on ABC at that time, and even to this day, if college football was being broadcasted at 9 o'clock in the morning, these guys were pushed to the 6:30, 6 a.m. time slot. And that really didn't help it out. But anyway, I remember the first time the thing is, I remember watching it for the first time, as far as I'm concerned, basically, I think about a month or so before I left, before I moved back out here. And I remember watching it on the television that my grandparents gave my mom, in the room that we all shared. And then I remember watching it again about a week or so before the season 2 premiere. So basically, like I said, I saw it twice, as far as I can remember. Twice in 1 year, in the span of a few months. Once in California, and then the second time in Kansas. Twice, like I said, twice was in the span of a couple of months. Once in California, first time in California, second time in Kansas, all within the same year. Not many people, I guess, could say that. But anyway, after that, the second season came around. Now, when I first moved to Kansas, my dad bought us a VCR. And I used the VCR during the Saturday mornings, like when my dad would work or whatever. And I would use them to record the episodes of season 1. And I would put them on variety tapes. Second season came around, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do what my cousins do out here in in California, I should say. I'm going to do what they've done, because my cousin, because one of my cousins, who's 2 years older than me, he recorded almost every season of X-Men, the 1990s cartoon, on their own individual tapes. He would dedicate one tape to that show. So I decided to take after him a little bit with the Sonic show. Unfortunately,